Namaste, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Lindsay, and I will be your yoga instructor for this short practice. I will meet you laying down on your back, and that's where we'll go over today's theme. So let's take the feet about mat distance apart, so to either edge of the long side of the mat, and draw the knees in towards each other. Allow the back to flatten out onto the mat. Feel the ground underneath you. And if this is too much, you can always narrow off the knees or maybe just come into a shavasana or a different position into the legs. If you're resting here, just working into the internal rotation of the hip flexors. Maybe taking one hand to the heart here, one hand to the belly, just focusing on the inhales and exhales, noticing how your chest, how your belly lifts and falls with every breath. So today on day 10, our theme is all about easing into discomfort. So I wanted to do this because I know that joyful movement is a privilege that many do not have access to. So whether you have some kind of chronic condition, long-term pain, or even short-term pain and injury, moving joyfully and freely without pain is not an option. It's fantastic if it is, don't get me wrong, but for many we know that this simply is not a possibility. So let's aim for tolerable movement. The themes that we've talked about in other classes become so integrated in this class as well. Like limiting or knowing your limits, I should say, maintaining your boundaries, respecting your body. Here I'll ask you to recall these ideas as we add on to them. So maybe notice the difference between some mild discomfort as we come into this more stretchy, flexibility and mobility geared practice. So notice the difference between that, and pain that is just intolerable. Let's start to draw the knees in towards the chest. Wrap the forearms around them. Give yourself a big hug. You deserve it. Maybe just rocking side to side here, compressing the hip flexors as you massage the low back into the ground. Take a few more deep breaths here. You can do a clearing breath as well, drawing the breath in through the nose and exhaling, sighing out through the mouth. Now finding your way up to a seated pose, you can rock and roll at the length of the spine, but no, maybe this doesn't feel good for you today. I'll meet you in a tabletop position. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. If you have hyperextended joints like me, add a soft bend to the elbows here. Simple cat and cows. Let's breathe in, drop the belly, lift the gaze. Nice big inhale. As you exhale, draw the tummy in round the spine. Maybe the eyes come towards the thighs. If you're feeling tight into the back or any tension in the low back, know that you don't have to generously arch through your cow pose. Maybe just ease into a more neutral spine instead of working in the fullest range of motion. So again, really mind your edge here. Try to link breath to movement. Now you can keep going like this, or you can add some intuitive movement if that's calling to you. So swaying the hips side to side, maybe starting to roll out the spine, drawing little circles here. Now, I included this one because it kind of looks a little funky, you kind of look like you're prowling around like a cat or something. And it can feel really awkward to do these kind of movements in a studio space when you know people are watching you. There's other viewers around on their mats, but maybe you're alone in your house, or maybe you're surrounded by people who, you don't care see you doing this. So ease into this, ease into some discomfort in a different way. It might be uncomfortable because you're self-conscious about the way that it looks, but maybe in this case, that's a good thing. So ease into that. And if you're like, okay, still not for me, that's fine too. You don't have to do it. Coming back into your neutral tabletop position, let's start walking the hands in front towards the top of the mat. Heart melting pose, peppy pose. Allow the forehead to rest onto the ground. Now notice if you're starting to really arch into the back, start to lift the tummy up and engage the core. Make sure the hips are stacked over top of the knees and think about pressing the chest down. So for me, I'm very tight into certain parts of the pec area. I'm also very tight into my upper back and my shoulders, so I do feel stretch there as well. If you want more intensity, you can always come up onto the fingertips or rest the chin down to the mat instead of the forehead. Let's take a deep inhale here, no rush. Let it out through the mouth, just let it go. On your next inhale, let's slide forward into our Sphinx pose. Come onto the elbows, spread the fingers wide. Point the toes back, let the legs rest heavy here. Maybe closing the eyes, setting an intention, your own personal intention for this practice. One more clearing breath here. In through the nose, inhale your deepest inhale. Exhale, don't rush it, sigh out through the mouth. Let's bring the left hand towards the right corner of the mat, slight angle in the arm. Let's start to bend the right knee in and try to reach onto the foot. Outer edge is fine with the right hand. Start to draw the heel in towards the seat. Can you open up the chest to the right side of the mat? So this is a nice quad stretch here, also a heart opener. If this doesn't feel good, you can always just tent up onto the right fingers, maybe practice bending the knee and extending. Wherever you are, one more breath cycle, one more inhale, one more exhale. Your inhale to release. Coming to the second side. We'll take the right hand over to the left corner of the mat, so we have that 45-degree angle in the forearm. Start to bend to the left knee and reach the left hand back for the foot. Whatever side of the foot you want to grab, reach for it. So I'm actually taking, because I have a little bit more flexibility, I can actually grab it with the foot with the inner crease of the elbow. Don't feel like you have to do that. Start to open up the chest towards the left side of the mat. And again, just pick a variation that feels good to you. Maybe you're just practicing bending and extending the leg. Maybe you're just up onto the left fingertips. One more breath cycle. Inhale, exhale. On your inhale, let's release. Coming back into our Sphinx pose for a moment. Starting to tuck the toes. You can interlace the fingers here if you know you're tight in the shoulders. Start to draw the tummy in, lift yourself up into your forearm plank. You can always come down to the knees here for a modification. Wherever you are, spread wide through the shoulder blades, elbows tracking under the shoulders. Draw the tummy in, squeeze the seat, squeeze the quadriceps, full body. 5 breaths. Let your breath guide you through this. Know that you're stronger than you think, but if you know you've come to your limits, you can always come out of this into a child's pose. Almost there. The core is shaking. Mine is too. One more inhale. One more exhale. Drop the knees, child's pose. Let the forehead hang heavy onto the mat. Let's shift forward, inhale. Start to tuck the toes, hover the knees off the ground, lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. First one of this practice, maybe the first one of your day. So find movement that serves you here. Maybe you nod the head yes and no. Maybe you shake it side to side. Maybe you pedal out the feet to warm up. Say hello, good morning to the hamstrings. And once you're ready, let's settle into some stillness for 3 breaths. Inhaling through the nose and maybe exhaling through the nose now, sealing off the lips. Know if the heels are lifted. Mine are too. That's perfectly normal if you're feeling tight in the hamstrings. And take some weight into the fingertips here, away from the wrist. Final inhale, final exhale. And let's start to tiptoe as we look forward to the mat towards the hands. So tiptoe the feet up We'll come to the top of the mat, just forward fold, let everything hang heavy here. Maybe rock the weight side to side, switching the weight between one foot and the other. With the knees bent, let's start to curl up the length of the spine, coming up one vertebrae at a time. When you get there, let's roll the shoulders down the back, allow the heart space to get a little wider, to be a little more open. Fix any clothing you need to here. And let's get into our quick flow. Let's take the weight into the left foot. Taking the hands to heart center, let's lift the right knee up towards hip height. Flex the foot here. Now stay where you are. I'll just come to show you as I also use my words to explain what we're doing. Let's shine the inner right thigh up towards the ceiling. So we're opening up the hip, coming into an external rotation. And then let's start to go the other way, drawing the knee over towards the left, almost shining the outer thigh and glute up towards the ceiling. And let's do that a few more times, opening the hip, closing it off, just working into the mobility of the hips. Now you can keep going like that, or you can start to draw circles here, drawing the knee forward, around, and back a few times, and then reversing the circle. Go the opposite way. That left leg's probably burning about now. We are standing on it. When you're ready, let's draw that knee back to hip height, back to center. One breath in here. One breath out. Straighten out the leg, send it back behind you. Bend into the left knee. Step back into your crescent lunge. It's okay if you didn't make it. Just find your way there. It is quite a difficult stability pose. Back heel is lifted. Start to tuck the tailbone down. Squeeze the seats. If you need to bend the back knee to protect the back, absolutely do it. Go for it. Inhale. Exhale, plant the back heel down, warrior one. Squeeze that back glute a little bit more, really opening up the hip to the right corner of the mat. Bending the elbows, open up the chest towards the ceiling. Inhale. Exhale, straighten the arms. 2 more times like that. Inhale, bend. Exhale, extend. Last time, bend and extend. Can you get a little bit deeper into that front knee? Let's interlace the fingers behind the back and step the back foot in just a few inches, a few feet maybe. Straighten out the legs. Inhale, open the chest up towards the ceiling. Exhale, come halfway down so the chest is parallel to the ground. Try to lift the fist a few inches away off the tailbone, the seat. Gaze stays down. Draw the left hip back, engage through the hamstring of that front leg. Inhale. Exhale, fold over the front leg. Coming into our pyramid pose, feet can be hip distance, especially if you're tight in your hips or in your hamstrings. Inhale. Exhale, release the grip. Hands come to the ground, maybe to blocks or to the front left ankle. Now you can always sway the hips side to side, but we are aiming to get the hips in about a neutral position. So start to draw the left hip back, right hip slightly forward. And this should start to activate a little bit more into the left hamstring. Taking some weight into the hands, a slight bend into the front knee. Let's come into a low lunge, bringing the right knee down onto the floor. We'll just be here for a second. We'll transition back into our half splits. Flexing the left toes towards the nose. Keep drawing the left hip back. Stretching out a little bit more into the hamstrings. You got this. I know it's intense. Let's start to walk the hands over to the left side, outer side of the left leg. You don't have to do this. As an option, the hands can always come onto blocks as well. Maybe find your deepest forward fold here. Beautiful. Keep breathing. Take the hands to the inside of the front foot. Start to open up the left toes to the left corner. Heel in, toe out. Shift forward into our low lizard lunge. Really try to drop the hips down, open up the hips. Now the forearms can always come down here. You can bring the hands or forearms to blocks if the ground's too far away. Wherever you are, just make sure the front knee is in line with the ankle. kind of in line with the first two toes. If you were down on your forearms, let's come back up onto the hands. Lift the back knee. Lift the front knee towards the outside of the left arm, and then send the hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. It's a Sanskrit term. 3 breaths here. Settle into some stillness. Notice any differences from one side to the other. When you're ready, let's bring the feet together. Bend the knees, look to where you want to step. You can take little steps to the front of the mat, or right and then left, feet hip distance apart when you get there. Forward fold, Uttanasana. Let's inhale to our halfway lift. Hands slide up the legs, maybe to the shins or quads. Exhale, forward fold. Taking the left hand down to a block or to the ground, let's reach the right arm up. Gaze comes up towards that front hand. Try to keep the hips square here, shining forward. Inhale. Exhale to release. Second side, right hand down, left arm reaches up. Twisting from the belly button upwards. Try to draw the hips down, neutral, maybe a little bit more to the right because they're probably wanting to shift to the left. Inhale. Exhale to release. Let's take the hands just to float off the ground. Let everything hang heavy. Start to bend the knees and let's curl up the length of the spine nice and slow, no rush. We don't need any head rushes as we come up to stand at the top of the mat. We're coming for our second side. So take the hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra, and I'll again come to face you, but you stay at the front of the mat. Let's start to lift the left knee to hip height, flex that foot. Let's start to open up the hip, external rotation. Knee comes towards the left, inner thigh, inner shin, and calf shines up towards the ceiling. And then draw the knee over to the right, shining the outer thigh and glute up to the ceiling. Little window shield wiper motions here, back and forth, just working into the rotation of the hips. So this is great. You can stay here. If you want to work into that more full range, because the hips are a ball and socket joint, you can start rotating the leg all the way around. Bringing it to the side, back and forward, and then take it the opposite way. Back around, forward and through. Do a few more times like that. And then take the leg back to neutral, knee in line with the hip. Bend into the right knee, start to extend the left leg back, squeeze the seat, find your balance, nice and small, nice and large step back, gentle step back, high lunge, crescent lunge, nice. Feet are about hip distance apart. Again, you can bend the back knee here to protect the low back. Send the tailbone down, squeeze the seat. Let's take one more inhale, one more exhale. And then back foot plants down, 45-degree angle. Feet can stay hip distance. Warrior one. Keep squeezing the back seat. Are the hips towards the left corner of the mat? Let's start to bend the elbows, maybe open up the chest a little bit more, and extend the arms. 2 more times like that. Breathing in to bend. Exhale to extend. Inhale. Exhale. Start to interlace the fingers behind the back the more unusual way. Step the back foot in, maybe quite generously, especially if you're tight. Keep the feet hip distance, open up the chest, breathe in here. Make sure the legs are straight. Exhale, halfway down, torso parallel to the floor. Maybe you can lift the fists off the low back here. Keep the gaze shining down. Keep drawing the right hip back. If you're noticing you're hyperextending into the front knee, take some weight into the big toe. Inhale. Exhale to fold. As you fold, try to draw the fist towards the ground, maybe towards the head a little bit more, opening up the shoulders, stretching them out. Inhale. Exhale, release the hands wherever you want to go. Try to remember what you did on the first side. Maybe you started with the hands around the shins or the ankles. Maybe they came to center off the foot on either side. Maybe they came to blocks. You can find some movement here if that feels good. Feel out those cracks. I just had one myself. And then come into a low lunge. Move the left foot back. Drop the back knee down. We'll stay here just for a moment, and we'll pass through into our half splits. Flexing the right toes up towards the nose. Keep drawing the left heel in towards the hips. Again, hands can be on blocks here. Know that blocks are always an option. Mind your edge. What is tolerable for you? What feels okay? What doesn't? Let's start to walk the hands to the outside of the right leg, so to the right side of the mat, and forward fold, your deepest expression here, whatever that looks like to you. Oh, quite intense, I will say. So for me, it is intense. It is somewhat uncomfortable, but it's definitely tolerable. A good way to measure that is, can you still breathe deeply? Can you still talk? Can you still smile? If the answer is no, then you've gone too far. Then taking the hands to the inside of the front leg, take the heel in, the toe out. So toes out towards the right corner of the mat. Shift the weight forward into our lizard lunge. Now you might have to open up the leg to be a little bit wider here. That might feel better for you. Just make sure the knee's tracking along the ankle and the first two toes. Option to come down to the forearms if you did so on the first side. Again, blocks. Blocks are important if you need to use them. Keep breathing generously. Keep breathing evenly and deeply. One more inhale. One more exhale. Tuck the back toes. Make sure you're up onto the hands. Lift the back knee. Can you draw the right knee towards the outer edge of the right arm? And then send yourself up and back. Downward facing dog. Let's start to close off our practice. Let's lift the right leg up, open the hip, bend the knee, three-legged dog. We'll use this just as transition before we bring the right knee back forward to the outer edge of the right arm. Bring the right foot to the left wrist and come into your pigeon pose. For most of us, we need a pretty steep angle, kind of like a 45-degree angle on that foot. So draw the right foot to the left hip. Now you can stay up here into our pigeon, or you can come down onto the forearms, onto blocks maybe. Maybe shift the weight side to side. A few more breaths here. Inhale to come up. Let's bring the back leg forward. Left foot to the outside of the right leg. Coming into a twist, half forward of the fishes. Let's bring the left hand behind the back. Breathe in, reach the right arm up. Exhale, twist. Right elbow to the outside of left knee. Twisting the heart space open to the left side of the mat. Every time you exhale, can you get a little deeper? Let's inhale, take the feet about hip distance apart. Hands come right underneath the shoulders, lift the hips, reverse tabletop position. Take one more breath cycle, one inhale, one full exhale. Drop the hips down, maybe lift the feet or keep them on the ground for your boat pose. Draw the tummy in just to protect the spine. Now you can do a rock and roll to come to your downward dog, or find another way there. So I'm gonna rock the length of my spine, cross out the ankles, send the legs back into a plank pose, and up into downward facing dog. If that was too much, I'll meet you in downward facing dog, no worries. Maybe wiggle out the legs, maybe get a little bit of movement into them before we come to the second side. And we'll breathe in, reach the left leg up to the sky, open the hip, bend the knee, three-legged dog. We'll just use this as a transition to come forward, shift the weight forward, left knee to the left elbow, and then come into the pigeon by drawing the left foot kind of towards the right hip. Nice. So we can stay uplifted. This might be too much. Notice differences from one side to the other. If it feels okay, you can come down to the forearms, either to the floor or onto blocks. But know that one side will tend to be tighter than the other. So for me, I noticed that this side is quite a bit tighter than my right. I can still come down, but it's just not as comfortable. I can still breathe, I can still talk, I can still smile, so I'm all good. But go for similar sensations, you know, from one side to the other. It doesn't have to look the same. It would be great if it did, but that's not the way that our bodies work. So mind your edge. Let's just take a few more breaths here, wherever you are in this pigeon pose. On our next inhale, let's come up. Bring the right leg forward, right foot to the outside of the left thigh. We'll come into that twist, that half float of the fish's pose one more time. Right hand behind you. Breathe in, reach the left arm up. And then we twist. Open up the chest to the right side. Again, every time you inhale, let's think about lengthening through the spine, almost like a little puppeteer is pulling a string from the crown of the head. And as we exhale, maybe deepen this twist from the belly button upwards. Maybe even the gaze comes behind the back shoulder. Let's take one more inhale. One more exhale. Inhale to release. Feet about hip distance apart, hands right underneath the shoulders. Breathe in, lift up into your reverse tabletop position. Wherever this is for you, maybe the hips are in line with the knees, maybe they aren't. Inhale, exhale to release. Boat pose one more time. Maybe lifting the feet off the ground, maybe keeping them down. We'll hold for 4. Hold for 3. Hold for 2. Almost there, I promise. Last one. Cross at the ankles. You can rock and roll if you want to, or you can find your way back through a tabletop position or plank, whatever way you want to meet me, up and downward facing dog. So there's always multiple ways that you can find your way up into your down dog. This is our final one, so find any movement or any stillness that is calling to you. Let's take one final inhale, one final exhale here. Coming back down to the knees, find a way to the seat, and then find your way down, laying down onto the back. Whatever way you want to get there, I'll let that be your choice. Let's take the feet about hip distance apart, just taking the knees into little window shield wiper motions, back and forth, to the left, to the right. Then let's hold to one side, whatever side feels good to start. No, it's okay if the knees don't come down to the ground. So my knees are pointing over to the left, my right knee is not coming down, and that's fine. And you can always take the gaze in the opposite direction of the legs. So if your knees are to the left like mine, and taking the gaze to the right. And our next inhale, come back through center, take it to the second side. Just the opposite side than what you were doing the last time. Maybe take the gaze away from the legs to the opposite side. Maybe taking one hand to the belly just to feel the rise and fall of your breath. Inhale back through center. Find any final movements that feel good, whether it's a final hip opener like a happy baby pose, or coming back into that internal hip rotation pose with the feet to either corner of the mat, knees falling in. And I'll meet you into a Shavasana when you're ready. Let the arms rest alongside the body, palms facing up, feet to either corner of the mat. Close off the eyes if that feels comfortable to you. Come back to the natural rhythm of the breath. Let everything just hang heavy or rest heavy onto your mat today. Relax the face. You don't need any tension there. You don't need any tension into the neck, into the jaw. Just let that go. Take notice of how you feel. Maybe come back to that personal intention if you set one today. This is where I'll leave you in your final resting place. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Namaste, my friends.